Hi, I'm Pete, and welcome to Just a Few Acres Farm. In this video, I want to impart a little hard-won wisdom, and some of this wisdom is general to life, but a lot of it's directed to those of you who are aspiring farmers. I've been on YouTube for a little over a year now, so if you look back through our videos, you can see how life changes on the farm. Winters are slower and quieter and more reflective, and summers are just as hectic as can be. Right now we're in the middle of our most hectic time of season. There's so many projects to finish, so many animals to take care of. This is the time when Hilarie and I get the late summer blues. It just wears us down. No matter how much you love something, if you got to do it for so many hours every day, 7 days a week without a break, after a while you start to get tired of it and start to look forward to the quieter days in the winter. What we're feeling is farmer burnout, and our colleagues are feeling the same way. There's a big problem with farmer burnout. You put every ounce you have into your farm, and sometimes there's nothing left in the tank at the end of the day. And this leads a lot of people, after a while of giving their all, to change vocations. This is one of the realities of farming. Farming gets romanticized a lot. People will say, oh, you're living the dream, you're living on a small farm. And I say, yeah, and others will contact me and say, well, I want to start a farm and I have this and this question, and I'll answer them and do all I can to help them get started and tell them to do what they love. But the fact is that farming gets romanticized maybe more than it should, because there's some real aspects to small farming that take a particular kind of person to succeed in it. You have to be ready to do back-breaking labor every day. You have to be prepared for what nature's going to throw at you. You have to work outside in whatever nature's throwing you. Snow, rain, cold, heat, wind. Every day you're out there. There's no vacations. The animals have to be fed twice a day. We can't go anywhere. Hey. And above all, in the back of my head, I'm always thinking, will this pay the bills? Yes, it'll pay the bills this month, but will it pay the bills next year? Is this a sustainable enterprise? But there are many, many reasons to love the farm life, and I don't want this to be a negative video. Number one, and tops for me in those things to love about being a farmer, is that I am my own boss. Now, I don't like people telling me what to do, and I think I found the perfect occupation, because nobody tells me what to do here except for my wife, and I'm okay with that. On the other hand, it cuts both ways. If you don't want to have a boss and you're not a self-starter, you're going to be in trouble, because there's no sleeping in, even on the weekends. There's no sitting around watching TV. You've got to get yourself up, motivated, and go. I think that's great. It's also dangerous. And farming embodies the possibility inherent in the American ideal. After all, much of the way this country works was built around small farmers who were also citizens of the country. I think that this ability that we have as farmers to make whatever we want of ourselves, to be as successful as we have the motivation to be, is one of the last parts of America where the possibilities are limitless. And farming is the best way I've found to stay in touch with nature, with family, with place, and with natural rhythms. I think those things are so important. When I used to work on a desk job, every day of the year was the same. I commuted to work, I went inside, I did my work, went home. Here we're in sync with the natural rhythms, and that feels right. That is one of the most rewarding things about farming. And I think when you put all these things together, and then you look at the things I started out with, on the whole, being on a farm is overwhelmingly worthwhile. So the farm life, just like any other life, has its ups and downs. And here's the first piece of wisdom I want to impart. That is, if you assemble your farm to reflect the things you love, that's what'll get you through the rough parts. And this means not following somebody else's farm template. It means putting your own farm together out of the pieces of the things that you love doing. And Hilarie and I were deliberate about that when we built this farm. So we looked at our lives and said, this is what we love. I love raising cattle, and my daughter Cora loves raising cattle too, but Hilarie and my son Henry and Grace love raising chickens and turkeys. Those are our principal businesses. I love old equipment. I loved old equipment long before we started the farm, so I made a part of our farm, including the financial aspects of our farm, center around old equipment. We love being independent, and we love being able to be more self-sufficient than people usually are, so that was a big piece of our farm. We wanted to sell directly to the customers who would eat our food and have that relationship with them, and not sell in to some faceless commodity system as large farms do. So we made that part of our farm. And when we put all these things together, we had a farm that reflected what we loved and what we enjoyed doing. And so when we hit peaks in natural rhythms like this, where we're running and running and running, we always have that to fall back on. If I get too stressed out, I can spend a few hours tinkering with one of my tractors and I feel better. There's always a backup. These guys are always messing around in here. Now, figuring out what you love and putting your life together around that may sound easy, but I've run into a lot of people who really can't figure out what they love. And I don't think it's that people are incapable of figuring out what they love, but I think it's more that they're so jammed with daily obligations and the pieces of their life that seem immovable or unchangeable, that it's really hard to get out a clean slate with all that running around in your head and say, you know, this is what I really love, and this is what I want to do, and this is how I want to change my life. So I guess I challenge everybody to try and do that. I don't see any other way around it. If you look back on your life and you ask yourself, what have I loved and what hasn't been pleasurable for me? That's one way of starting. I know that when I started, I remembered how much I enjoyed not so much specific farming activities from my childhood, but the general feeling I got from being associated with a farm and just being outdoors and being in touch with things. That's what gravitated me back. I guess to turn it around on its head, you can also ask yourself, what haven't I enjoyed? And what if I remove all those pieces I haven't enjoyed? What am I left with? And if your answer is eating and watching TV, well, I'm sorry, I can't give you any help. While you're thinking about that list, I think that there are some core things that all farms and all farmers who love farming need to share, and that's a love of the land, a love of the animals or whatever you're taking care of as a farmer, and a love of nature and keeping nature healthy. I will say that even though I love what we do, there are aspects of it that I guess you would say I love less. So Hilarie and I farm full-time, and there's a terrible financial weight from farming full-time that the farm has to provide everything. And for those of you who would like to farm and get that extra boost in life, I guess, that being connected to a farm brings, I would say you can do that as a hobby and get those benefits without that weight on you. I guess the analogy for that is me doing mechanical work. I enjoy doing mechanical work on my own equipment and fixing up antique stuff, but if I had to do it for a living and do it 40 hours a week, I wouldn't enjoy it that much. Now, the same can be said for farming if you've got the extra weight of financial criteria on you. Here is the biggest piece of advice that I have that applies to life in general, not only farming, and that is release control of the things that you can't control. And I know that sounds stupid simple, but it's actually not. Let's take an example. You can't farm on paper. You can do all the planning you want and figure out how many animals you're going to grow and what the profit's going to be. And I'll tell you what, nature's going to throw a wrench in the works. You've seen it. I mean, I'm open about it on this channel. You could have a dry summer and have to buy a whole bunch of hay. You could have half a litter of piglets die because they're born on a cold night. You could have a predator get into the chicken house and lose half your flock in one evening. You have to be able to roll with these things. And you see, I'll have a smile on my face after these happened, because long ago I gave up trying to control what I can't control. If you've read my book, you know that I've spent a fair amount of time thinking about and going over the implications of control. How control affects our lives, our well-being, and the planet's well-being. And the more control that we try to exert over other people and the planet, the more energy we expend, the more people we irritate. People aren't meant to be controlled. And the more we tend to harm the planet, the more we try to control agriculture and make every season the same and flat and every crop the peak yield, the more we harm the planet. It took me half my life to figure out this one thing around control that relieved more stress in my life than anything else, and that is, don't expend any energy trying to control the things that are either difficult to control or impossible to control. Instead, release those things. Just separate them from your life. You may think in a foolhardy way that, oh, if I could just nudge this person over to this viewpoint, or change this animal's behavior, or make summer wetter, everything would be golden. But you can't do it. There's so many things that we try to control that we really can't, and it's so much happier. It's such a better life if you just release those things, and it's like a giant weight falls off of you. Control can be a pretty abstract idea, so let me give you some examples. The comments I get on videos, I put up a video on solar power, I don't know, it was a month ago, and I got comments that were diametrically opposed to the belief system that underlies why I spent money on solar. I could either choose to expend the energy to argue with those people and to try and prove my point and go round and round and round, or I could just walk away from it. I didn't always choose to walk away from it, but most of the comments out of 1,000 or 1,100 or whatever on that video, I walked away from, because I found that today people are so entrenched in their opinions and beliefs that there's no arguing with them. So that's kind of like living to fight another day. You know, you can't die on that hill. There's lots of other hills in life. I run into it with the pigs. We breed the pigs, and I hope and plan on 20 piglets out of 2 sows in each litter, 20 piglets total, which is a fair amount, and sometimes I only get 10 piglets. I don't worry about that anymore. What comes, comes. The weather's been dry, and I did a video about how dry it is, and I said, well, I'm gonna have to buy some hay, and I'm probably gonna have to sell a couple steers next year just to pay for that hay, which is profit I was planning on for next year that I won't get. And what can I do? There's nothing I can do. I'm not worrying about it. I take it with a smile on my face. I still love working with the cows. They just happen to be eating hay now, and next year will be a better year. I can't control it. In the end, I've found that it just takes experience, and it takes a lot of experience to understand what you can control, what is worth the effort to expend to control, and the things that you should just let go. And the things that you let go will make you much happier in the end, and everything will work out. It always does, and it'll be a lot stressful trip getting there if you let these things go. That's it. No farm work occurred in this video. There was no herding cattle or fixing old tractors, but this stuff is just as important as those videos that show the nuts and bolts of farming, because thinking about why you're doing something as well as how you do it, the two go together. You can't have one without the other. No, that's all I have to say today, and don't worry about me. I'll be feeling better pretty soon. The weather's going to turn cooler, things will quiet down. I'll get back into my shop and have a good winter. I hope you have a good day, and I'll see you next time.